found that. Oh wait, what? Is this look inverted? Is this fine how it is? I don't know where else you can get it. Well, I don't mean to tap anything. I'm going to put it on that side of it in the corner. Okay. You can see that one a little bit. Not that one. Not that one. That's front row. I'm going to.
Okay, I need your faces here and I need to smile. Try and make it out to 1, 2, 3. Alex, can you switch it?
Of course.
Okay, that's okay. Ready, set, go. Thank you.
All right.
I'm going to sit over here in case you need me.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
My name is Alex Rainey, and I'm your moderator for this evening. So I just want to give a little bit of background on who I am and why I'm doing this and what brought me to here and everything else. So I myself, I was born in Russia, and I was adopted from a mother who she worked in counterterrorism in Washington, D.C. She was one of the first 3 women to ever work in the Pentagon. She retired when I was 11 years old and moved up here to Ligonier. And she unfortunately passed away when I was 17. and I was put in foster care after that, and I have wonderful foster parents for that. But so in all the things that had happened in my life, I started to think, well, what made Alex the way that Alex was? And then a majority of my time as a child was spent in school. School never really brightened me. It never really inspired me. It never made me a better human being. It never did anything really for me. And so after she passed away, I fell down a slippery slope, and I brought myself out of it. I had struggled immensely for a few years, and that is common knowledge within the valley here. But after getting my life together, I saw that Alex had major problems. And where did Alex have major problems? He had major problems in every aspect of his life. So when I started to fix every single aspect of that life, I came to realize that, hey, maybe this isn't the way that it should be happening, aka the schools. Because if I was set up in a better position to actually learn and to actually be taken care of as a child, I probably might have been able to succeed. Now, I'm obviously not blaming my transgressions on that, but it did play a major factor. And so, fast forward a little bit, that's what led me to run for mayor and to run for politics a few years ago. I saw, especially with COVID going on, that there's a big need in people, and young people especially, to get involved in politics, because that is what our country is founded upon, as a democracy. We're able to vote for people's citizens. And so I'm truly blessed, and I'm truly honored to be here and to have this opportunity to do this again, the second time coming. And without further ado, I will give introductions to the candidates, a brief introduction, and then they will introduce themselves. And so first we have Matt Kaufman. He holds a bachelor's degree in criminology from IUP. He's a combat veteran and has one child within the school district.
You need me to use this or tell us? You can tell. All right. Moved to the Valley a couple years ago. Built a home in 2017 here. Have no plan to leave. Came from Hummel Township, just over the mountain. So I graduated from Hummel Township in 2004. I do, like you said, have a bachelor's degree from IUP, majoring in criminology and minor in geography/cartography. Then I went to the military, stuff like that. After I completed my military service time, found out I had a kid on the way. Started going into community service and doing a law enforcement class when I'm here in the community. So a lot of the people I have seen before in various aspects. Do have two kids. One is living here, the other one is in Valley School. Looking forward to trying to help out, to try to better some of the problems that our kids can see in the school, and trying to gather more information to address other problems that other parents haven't voiced. So thank you guys for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Matt. Next, we have Robert Fryman. He has a PhD in anthropology and has been teaching for 40 years.
My PhD is from the University of Pittsburgh, so I go there. So I don't have ties to the area here. My background, as he says, 40 years of education, both at the collegiate level and at the public school level. For 20 years, 40 years, I taught at NC University in Florida. And then, according to my colleagues, I took leave of my senses to go teach in public schools. Actually, I really enjoyed that change because it got me the opportunity to go to see what was happening in terms of educational skills and abilities, knowledge that was being addressed in the schools, and how that was translating into later success, but also difficulties and problems that the students were having. So my interest in coming onto the school board, running for the school board, is trying to bring that 40 years of expertise, literally on both sides of the podium, as a student, as a professor, and then on the other side again as a high school, middle school teacher, to helping the community. Part of my dissertation actually dealt with living here, and I do have roots to the valley through my wife, Linda, who's a 3-generation resident of the town.
Thank you, Robert. Next, we have Joe Bella. He's a software developer. and currently works for Boston Consulting Group. He has one child in the school district.
Hello, thank you everyone for coming out. Everyone who's tuning in, appreciate it. We really do. I've been part of the Lincoln community since I was 10 years old, one way or the other. I've had two businesses in Lincoln here. It was a cafe. Didn't do so hot before, but we had a lot of fun with it. Consulting business as well in Lincoln here. Also had the honor of sitting on the board of the YMCA for several terms for Lincoln here. 2 terms and a couple of terms on the session in the church. So this is a big step from those roles in terms of doing something for the community, working for the community, but I'm looking forward to it. I have my son who's in the back of the room, Zach, is in high school now. My oldest son went through winter school, and my daughter is in Valley. She's going to be transferring into Whittier in 2 years. So I have a vested interest in getting the school district to where it really needs to be, where I think it can be. I think we're gonna talk a lot about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Next we have Maureen. She is a PhD in Human Development and Family Studies, and she has 3 children in the school district.
So, yeah, I moved to live here in 2012. My husband got a dream job in the area. And at that time, I was working as a researcher for the Prevention Research Center in Penn State, with a lot of focus on trying to serve community needs, the needs of children. My background is in thinking about the needs of families, looking at the needs of schools, and how you can improve communities, especially using research and data. And our oldest son, who's somewhere out there in the world, running around the playground here, is 9 years old. And I also have a 7-year-old who's in 1st grade and a 2-year-old. I currently am a senior educator with Cooperative Extension. So I serve all of Southwest Pennsylvania, doing programs around drug and alcohol prevention, alcohol first aid for youth, parenting classes, family stress, things that are specific to farmers. And it's an area that I love. I for many years was a professor teaching students, and now I love teaching other kinds of students, teaching adults who sometimes are more enthusiastic to be working with me on different subjects that we are covering. And I also really like service. So throughout my life, I've tried to be involved in initiatives and efforts and try to use what time, skills I might have to try to make things better for our community, but also particularly for our kids. And something I've always had a passion in, but I have a particular passion in that my children are in the school district. And so I wanted to try to volunteer my time on the school board and my expertise in order to try to reach the goals that we all have and the dreams we all have for our children.
Thank you, Maureen. Next we have Gary Steffi. He served 6 years in the military. He's retired from the railroad after 37 years, and he currently has grandchildren in the school district.
Now, I'm originally from Lexington, Kentucky. We get a little bit of my southern drawl, especially when I go across the border. But anyway, I've been here since 1975. The reason I mentioned the military is because that's where I met my wife, who was from this area. Just so you know, and as they say in full disclosure, she's a Midderheimer. So, anyhow, we met at Dover Air Force Base in Dover, Delaware. We moved up here in 1975. We've had 4 kids that have gone through the school system. My oldest son is 46, and we went through it, and the other ones all went through it. One lives in Derry, one lives here, 2 lives here, and 1 lives in one. So we kind of cover all bases. But all the grandkids here, we have 12 grandkids, 5 in Derry, and 7 that have gone through that are in the school system now, except for 1. He's at Grove City. He's in his 3rd year at Grove City. We still have 6 in the school district. So the reason I bring that up is because that's why I'm here. Everybody has their own interaction with the school district, and last 40 years. So, anybody I got lots of stories, and I'm sure everybody has lots of questions, so I'll leave it at that. My education needs nothing. As long as the kids, that's what counts. We have to teach the kids right and get them where they need to be. Fortunately, we all can do good, and we can all do better, and our goal is to do better.
Thank you, Gary. Next, we have John Kenyon. He has a degree in elementary education and a background as a collegiate football coach. He is also a retired Air Force flight navigator and chaplain.
I ended up serving for 30 years and didn't realize 20 you get to retirement, so I just kept going. I was in B-52 bombers and C-130 aircraft, about 2,600 hours. And then I ended up moving over to the chaplain corps, did that for 20. And then they put me out there in 2016. Some of the assignments that I had, I think they're important, as I was at the Pentagon as an intern. I did serve as instructor staff at the Air Force Chaplain College for 4 years. Curriculum, other things there besides teaching. One of the things that I think is an important thing for me from that standpoint of what I bring to the fight, so to speak, is that coming through the military for those many years is strategic thinking. Thinking things through, looking at them and the impact that they have, not just in right here, but 2 or 3 levels out. So that would be the aspect that I would bring to the discussions and things of that nature. And again, as Maureen spoke, saying of giving time, because I think it's important for our community in this, and so we're doing that. And again, in everything that we do, it's important that we are putting our families first as we go through. And the final thought as I leave is that my connections here with Ligonier is back in the 1910s. My grandfather passed in Pioneer Presbyterian. My father was born here in 1918. In fact, let me give you a tip or a secret. I now have 7 of my 12 or my 11 siblings back here in the area. So you may want to sell or buy because the property values are plummeting. That's it for me.
Thank you, John. So next, I have received quite a number of questions via the public, and selected 5 of them, 5 of the most hot topics for voters, parents, and educators as well. But before we get into that, I would like to say a quote from Marcus Cicero. What society does to its children, so will its children do to society. So the first question we have, we're just going to go down the line exactly as we did the introductions. Each candidate will have a minute to respond, and it will be the same question for each candidate. So here is Matt, and the first question is, a property school district can have a huge impact on value. The better the school district, the more desirable the property. Some families will only purchase properties in areas with certain schools. According to a 2013 study, people paid an average of $50 per square foot for homes in top-ranked school zones compared with homes in districts with schools of average quality. With that being said, how do you plan to make Linear Valley School District a stronger district while not increasing taxes?
First of all that stuff with property value, I'm going to take your word for it, because I don't know how that works. But as far as the most important part of that is how we're going to make LVSD stronger. I think the first thing is to develop some effective communication. It seems like there's a lot of barriers right now between different rights. We need to start pulling from teachers, parents, kids. That way we can kind of understand fully the complexity of the problems and also differentiate between where the problems are at. Some are maybe LVSD wide, and might think certain schools. Being that we have 4 different schools, I think you're gonna have different issues per school. So that's the first thing. The next thing is we need to bring in some more programs. It seems like what I have been noticing with the different kids is there seems to be a major gap since post-COVID. It seems like some kids are very exceeding and excelling and forward. And then you also have a large number of kids who are, kind of barely meeting the standard and they're getting pushed through. So we've got to find a way to bridge that gap and do different things. From my understanding, I don't see anything with like math intervention, stuff like that. So there's different strategies I'd like to bring into schools to try to bridge that. The writing to me is unacceptable. Seems like we've got to really focus on some writing. And then there's a big push in this area for learning at your own level. That's, to me, a little bit of an issue. We got some kids who are falling behind, and that's acceptable. That's not for me. We need to bring those kids up effectively and immediately so they can understand. If they don't have the proper building blocks at the lower level, how can they compete with these more complex issues later? I saw a lot of things when my kids were going through the school that were pushed through at the basic fundamental level. So we can work on that. Keep hearing a lot of these kids are in cyber school still. I keep on hearing that local private schools around us are doubling in size and their maximum capacity. I want to tell you why. Kind of look at why they're leaving, why they're not coming back. I think it's very important for us to understand how to make the district better. But I mean, bottom line is I can't do it on my own. I'm not well enough qualified, and enough matters. I serve a lot of really great things that all these people here bring to the table. But the more important thing is we need to have a way that the teachers, parents, kids, and everything can come to us and we can learn from problems.
Thank you, Matt.
Yep.
The schools that I've worked in, public schools, it's true what they say. The whole idea is how well curriculum is. How well do students meet 5 basic educational goals that everybody should come in? They should have mastered by coming out of high school. The ability to read, to write, to speak, to listen, to problem solve. Those five characteristics. Often what happens is the curriculum is not up to that standard. So to look at it, the way I look at this is that we need to evaluate how strenuous is the curriculum itself. How much does the curriculum actually go and reflect what the community needs, what the students need? Are we actually enforcing success of students? Because all too often the American school system, particularly with No Child Left Behind, which we used to call No Child Left Behind, Left Untouched, was that there is no accountability that people push through. They treat the educational system today as a factory model. It wasn't. The factory model is what we have here. So we need to look at ways to get students to take responsibility for their learning. We need to have interaction from the teachers. They're the ones in the trenches. They're not the enemy. They're the ones who know exactly what is going on, what problems they're encountering. As a former classroom teacher, I can tell you that a lot of times we were frustrated by all the demands that came down from administration and at the state level, the federal level, and even at the local school level about this is what we need to do in the classroom. It takes you away from that. We need to find out what the teachers need to be able to effectively go and do their job properly. So by opening lines of communication with the teachers is very important. Another is to do a longitudinal study. We need to go back and we need to contact graduates of Ellis, Lincoln Valley School District, and find out if you got out of school with a diploma, how successful were you? What were the shortcomings? What did we do good? What did we do bad? We need to actually look and talk to the people who are the products, so to speak, of the school system to figure out how can we go and tighten it so that the tighter the curriculum is, the more successful the students are, and we are going to actually have more people becoming interested in moving into Ligonier Valley and taking part.
Thank you, Robert.
Well, with the budget approaching $34 million, I don't think money is the problem. In terms of talking about increasing taxes, there's plenty of money. Right? The question is, how's that money being administered? And apparently, it's not currently being administered in a way that delivers a top American school. Any administration of any institution requires oversight. And the incumbent board candidates that are asking for another term are simply not doing. There's an expectation for them to do it next year, so I'm not sure whether they're looking, but they're not. They rubber stamp whatever comes from the administration. They vote on a budget without looking at it. They approve the ability to go out and ask for grants, but have no oversight of how that money is actually being spent in the school district. The rubber stamp anything comes down from the state. They don't have to, but they do. And that is a challenge, and I think the other challenge here, or potential solutions, this board, this administration does not seem to acknowledge that there are people outside of their sphere that are benefit interest, vested interest, in terms of listening to parents or teachers within the school system. Outside of oversight, and to echo what was said before, with the varying experiences that we have here, but also with teachers and parents, taxpayers in this community. Two of them both have been shut out, I think, up to this point, and that's a big thing we want to change.
Thank you, Joe.
So, for me, my priorities for running the school board, and you'll have to bear with me. So, Alex so kindly gave said we will only have a minute, and I talked at length. So I typed out what I was going to say just so that I didn't steal time from anybody else. But for me, the priorities I set for thinking about what would I go to work on the school board include thinking about inclusive, visualized education, including some of the things that Matt mentioned, thinking about challenging gifted learners, thinking about providing appropriate sports for children with special needs. I'm a big believer in the value of outdoor learning, experiential learning, thinking about what we need in terms of college prep. I'm also very supportive of investment in social relationships between not just the community and the school, and family partnerships, but things that promote resilience in our children, many things like all of us struggled with in the last few years with all the changes that we've seen. I think that these changes will not just benefit kids in our district long after they graduate. We don't know what the future of work looks like, what the future of the world looks like. But I think it would make our district more competitive, thinking about issues of how do you attract people to the district, especially in this time of thinking about hybrid work. So many of my neighbors where I live in the area work from home at least part of the time. I'm running around in different parts of Southwestern Pennsylvania, and I also work in my home office, and it gives me more flexibility and my family more flexibility. One of the things about property values, though, is that it's also true that communities with higher wealth bases have more resources to invest in public school. So some of the top-ranked districts in the state have very high budgets that far exceed ours. It is part of the reason for the recent court decision that found that PA's current system's funding is unconstitutional. And in theory, based on policies decided by our government and our legislature, restructured funding throughout the state could greatly benefit rural districts like ours without raising taxes and give the board some added flexibility for the kinds of things that we want to invest in and expand. Like the other gentleman have mentioned, especially in that Joe mentioned, I know in my social circle, we've seen people choose private school, choose homeschooling, or choose cyber. And I think what we want to see is, in a democracy, we want to see different backgrounds and different experiences in school together. And I would hope that my priorities would be ones that would attract people to our district and give kids the best education possible and strengthen our community overall.
Thank you, Maureen.
Well, everybody can talk about the price of property. It goes up, it comes down, it goes up, bounces back and forth. Had the opportunity to go to a Dave Ramsey course several years ago. He talked about the price of property. That just didn't mean that I could automatically afford it. So anyhow, the reason I say all that is the price of property and the price of things that go up are directly affected by this school and the students. But it's an after effect. It's a byproduct of doing a good job. People will hear about people in Leander having a good education, and they automatically want to come. There's a lot of people that bought property here for a lot of different reasons. So I like to keep it simple. I think we just let the teachers teach. They're stuck. I think we have, a few years, I think the biggest issue is just plain old leadership. My dad told me years ago, I'm old enough to know John Wayne. If anybody else knows, anybody out there understand who John Wayne is? He was kind of one of my heroes back when I was growing up. And my dad made a statement. He said, you know, a lot of people have empty pedestals looking for heroes. Maybe let the teachers teach.
Thank you, Gary.
One of the things that's going to, the third question that we asked, we deal with the cost for students, and also it's a study that was done in 2023 and gives grading for the school district. It's interesting that the fact that the school district is spending, the average is like 12K. Nationally, we are spending 5,318 more per student. And we have a cumulative grade of C+. That tells me that the school district is not operating at peak performance. It is my assessment that total review needs to happen. Slow and steady wins the race. You can't always fix things right away, so you keep at it. And then you say more money is needed to correct this, flies in the face that the school district has in its present budget of $33 million, 1,378 students. What that comes out to is $23,931 being spent per student. One of the things that I think needs to happen is a total review of how business is done so that these issues can be addressed in the city and how they're spent.
Thank you, John. I just want to say, just as a friendly reminder for all the people at home, please speak into the microphone.
Guys, that's not a multi-directional mic. You can't speak to the sides of it. You have to speak right in the head of it.
Yes.
But the people at home aren't getting it.
Yes. So the second question, if elected, do you have a plan for how you would actively engage the community for input and stay informed about priority issues in our district? And if so, can you please describe?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's actually something that Joe and I had been speaking at great lengths about as the most important thing coming into this before that question we asked. We had spoke a couple different times that some type of system needs to be created where anybody can put in a comment anonymously so that way we can review it and look at it for credibility and also for its effect. The only thing we talked about was implementing something where you can check an IP address in case there be some type of threat that we, law enforcement have to work with. But we got to have something. Right now, I'm seeing a lot of stuff go around on social media. That's doing nothing but hurting us apart as far as I'm concerned. A lot of misinformation. There's a lot of different comments that I just monitor. We've got to create a system to talk. Biggest thing is though, is at these school board meetings, I went through a couple. I go there, I sit, I tell my thing, and nobody responds to it. That to me, I felt disrespected at that point. School board members got to be able to ask questions that fully understand where I'm coming from. If I just make a real quick blanket talk, they might not want to add to it, but you got to analyze it. You got to have some type of interaction. This whole form right now with this up here and down there, it drives me nuts itself. We've got to break it. We've got to all be on the same team. We've got to work on this together. So if we don't have the community, which we don't have right now, we can't fix the problem. As I was saying in the first comment, there's too many different individual things that are overwhelming. We just got to methodically go through line by line and see, is this just a one-person problem or is this a whole problem? And then almost like a triage, deal with the most effective and the worst one first and work out. So that's how it feels with the community. Without the community, you can't be successful.
Thank you, Matt.
Looking at this, one of the things is that people say, well, we go and we talk. You're heard, but people don't want to be heard, they want to be listened to. And that's the big criteria that we have to change. When people come to us, we need to listen, not just hear sound. And the way that we need to do this, for me, is that the school board doesn't get out into the community. The teachers are in the community, the students are in the community. I don't think that the administration of the school gets out and really goes around and tries to find out how do the people feel.
So what I feel would be one thing that I would push for would be quarterly town halls. Every quarter, we have a town hall meeting where parents can come and discuss problems and issues that they are seeing and be heard. Not just words, but actually listened to. Because all these questions, when you look at them, they're all interrelated. And one of the biggest challenges, which is in question number 4, is the school is faced with the problem of trust, school board. Nobody really trusts them, because why should we trust them? They don't listen to us. We've got to change that. And by listening to people and understanding that they are the ones who are paying for the education of our children is one way that we can actually start that process to also strengthen the schools.
I love the idea of quarterly town hall. I think that's fantastic. And I think also, I went to the school board meeting, and one first thing I saw was the board sitting kind of like we are. I'm not crazy about this, I heard Matt, but they're sitting up there like, I don't know, it's untouchable. What do you do? I don't know. It bothered me that the people were down here and board. That's something I'd like to change. I think the school board should be sitting at the same floor level with everybody else. I don't think they should be up there. That always bothered me. Like move them off the stage. I don't like the idea of the questions having to be pre-submitted. It really doesn't matter because they don't pay attention to them anyway. And I asked a couple people, so why do all of the comments circling around our community relative to this school district, why is anybody here? And the answer was, well, nobody listens to them. So what's the point? And they're right. That's the current school board. That's the incumbent candidates that are asking for another term. They're the ones that aren't listening. And I think the first step of listening is getting them down into the trenches with everybody else as opposed to being pushed up. Another mechanism, this goes to also what Matt was saying, is I am a software developer by trade. I studied theology at Geneva. I write software for living, so I've done that all. And I'm fortunate enough to work at home, so I have some extra capacity. And I built a website, web application that's currently out there at openear.com. That's where you can see our profiles right now. And that's on our cards. But I'm going to continue to add to that. And one of the pieces will be an ability, figure out the best way to do it, an ability to submit anonymous comments. I want teachers to feel that they can do it without any blowback. Students, parents, other board, whatever. And like Matt said, the only thing that'll get tracked is in case there's a serious threat, we can report to law enforcement. You got to be investigated. So otherwise, we'd have no idea who it is. And that is to foster real communication coming in. But there's other aspects of that site that we want to continue to develop to encourage more interaction outside of the craze of Facebook, focus more on school. And then we're elected, and I'd like to take that same technology and parlay that into something that the school board can officially use to communicate with the community outside of the community website in a more real-time, reactive way, and be able to foster a lot more communication.
Thank you, Joe.
So I think, just like my fellow panelists, I would like to see, I think transparency and communication is so important. And as board members, we represent the district as a collective. So how we conduct ourselves between one another and also how we interact with the community in some ways reflects what people think of the community. I know that one thing that I would like to see, and I am one of those parents, some of you are similar to me, where I don't think that there's a board member that hasn't heard from me multiple times over the last several years since my son was in kindergarten. The superintendents have been familiar with me, and I'm good at communicating with my children's teachers. The one thing that I have not got a straight answer to, and I would be interested in learning more, is why our board meetings aren't live streamed like this event, or recorded at least on YouTube. Many other districts have kept that in large part because it lends itself to that transparency. Maybe on a Friday night, you don't necessarily want to sit down after your day of work and see what the panel has to say. But if there's something that interests you, you want more detail beyond what's just in the minutes, then you have that opportunity to see how people interact in a less formal way. Districts like Latrobe, those
committee meetings, not just the committee of the whole, you have those reportings too, unless it's something sensitive, it has to do with an employee issue or a student issue. Similar to the gentleman here who were talking about this idea about quarterly meetings, I have a friend who's on a board in another district, and they've been trying new ways of reaching out to the community. So sort of meet and greet, coffee opportunities where people can feel comfortable talking to them, get to know them in a way that might feel a little bit more comfortable. Something else that I have noticed that I appreciated is that when my son started in kindergarten in 2019, the emails of the boards weren't always available online, they were hard to find. And it made it very difficult to communicate with board members. Now you can find everybody's email, but there's a lot of variability in how quickly people respond to you, or what they might have to say, depending on how, not just how busy they are, but to what degree they are interested in what you have to say. So I'm thinking about that as a policy. How do we as a board respond to email? What are our expectations for the time involved with that? And who should do it and how, and if language that we're using. For me, I think that similarly, the board members need to show up in the community. We have children in the elementary school from infancy all the way up to young adulthood in the high school. And so having board members feeling like they're out in the community and not just necessarily in an environment where they have personal connections. I think one thing that makes why forums like this are so important is that once you are on the board, you are representing a collective. And so one thing that can be challenging is having common messaging around issues when you're representing the board in the community. So right now is a great time where people can ask us, how do you feel about this? What are your priorities? What are your beliefs? But when you're representing the board, you're representing the district, you're representing the community. And I think that we can have a better discussion about what ideally that should look like, so that we are being represented in a way that's respectful and professional.
Thank you, Maureen.
I think everybody's saying the right thing. The main thing is to listen. I have, again, 12 grandkids. I've been able to learn to listen. And also, if anybody has any kids or grandkids or friends that play basketball in it, why? That's where I spend a lot of my time playing basketball. Growing up in Lexington, Kentucky, if you didn't play basketball, they shot you and threw you off to the side. So I played basketball, and we just had a game. The reason I'm moving so slow is because I played last night for 50 minutes with a whole bunch of young men. We're in a league that we're finishing up. They call me Pops. So if you know any basketball players that live here, ask them if they know Pops. And so the reason I bring all that up is almost everybody's younger, and we get a lot of high school kids in there playing, and a lot of kids that have been out of school that come back, and they come back from vacation, wherever they're playing. I played with all. So, listen.
Thank you, Gary.
I also would, from the standpoint of, as I was thinking about this, of personal town hall meetings. Now I am retired, so I have the opportunity to go and do different things because I don't have to do a 9 to 5. With that, personal town halls in different locations within the school district. This would allow parents, teachers, students to meet personally with me. Some may say, you know, that's a pretty high measure, and you know, are people going to come? And my answer to that really comes from the superintendent of the school, superintendent of the Ligonier School District, Tim Cantor, who was talking at the last meeting, school board meeting, where he was talking about the vaping presentation for parents that they did at the senior high. You know how many people showed up? 1. Now, the thing is even if 1 shows up, you still need to be there. And so this aspect of going out and being a presence, being able to, and in many ways of that voice, to be able to say, I am the one who can be your advocate, that type of thing. So yes, it is a board. It is a board that needs to be of one voice. Also, the board needs to be able to take all the messages to present them so that they're brought to people. Indeed, also, this is a way that I see for a way of accountability for me. For if I am elected, I need to be held accountable. This is a way, I think, also for that to happen. So.
Thank you, John. The next question that was asked, it's worded a little bit. Currently, we are a B- rated school, according to the January 2023 NEACH report. The report states that our cost per student is $17,318, compared to the national average, which is $12,000. In regard to our total budget last year, it was $33 million. $33 million divided by 1,378 students is $23,931 per student. We are ranked B+ in academics, C- in diversity, B in teachers, B+ in college prep, C- in clubs and activities, C- in administration, C in sports, C+ in food, C- in resources and facilities. The average student is 44% proficient in math and 68% proficient in reading. How would you work to either improve our educational standards across the board or lower the total cost per student?
So we need to look at both of those. Lower the cost per student, there's a lot more that just goes in depth with that cost per student. You have to evaluate special needs population for student population. There's a whole lot of nuts and bolts to looking through a budget. When I looked on our website, though, I did see that the budget's a little bit different than other schools. I'd like to look at it not only over 1 year, but over 5. Recently negotiated contracts and stuff. I think 1 year is too short of a thing to look at, especially based upon some of the rulings that Marina pointed out earlier. So we need to look at that. But improving educational standards is even more important than the cost per student right now. I mean, we can look at that. It's going to take a fine-tooth comb over the budget. It's great. But right now, we have some major problems with educational standards. It seems like we just want to keep using this. I've said about it before. I think I need to explain about these iPads. I am not anti-iPads. I'm anti-relying only on the iPad. Lincoln Air has implemented it so importantly that you have to use the iPad to go to back. That's severely bothering me. Psychologically, I can tell my student, my kid, that he's got to sign on his iPad, wait for permission, and then go. I was told by the administration that the feature was changed, but after playing with it, it depends on the teacher. Some teachers. It also seems like a major concern for a teacher. I want her to actively be in depth and looking into detail of what she's trying to present, not taking breaks. I think there's better ways. We had all passes. I understand that there are PFA violations and the other reason for it. They can monitor 2 students if they're messing around, they can't go out together. I understand the implications for it. You have these kids that are so addicted to these iPads, that's the only tool they have. The textbooks, the reading, the writing, I think, and looking at blue screens for that long, I'd like to see longevity studies about that. Right now, it seems like the iPad is everywhere. It's great, but it's not the only thing. The other thing is we're not really using the iPad to meet its full capacity. We have 5 different platforms we're using. It's extremely confusing to a parent. You've got to go to PowerSchool, Schoology, HIC, and all these different websites. There's better platforms out there that all bring it all together. So, like, therefore, and that goes to the next point, you got to talk about organization. I don't know if you guys realize this, but the planners are not going with the students, and there's no accountability for organizing and planning events. To me, as a student, that was what taught in my school, was they would give me 2 points or 5 points whenever they checked my planner every day to make sure I knew what homework was on. A, we don't have homework, and B, we don't have organization. You log onto the calendar, it's blank. It's on the individual student to put anything on there. In today's age, when you log into a college platform, it's already populated. What tests are and everything like that. So if I'm a parent, student, I care. I can dictate, when my kid has to go get braces and stuff around a schedule, so I'm missing tests. So we need it's a double-edged sword. To improve the education standard, we've got to start addressing this iPad. That's the most important thing right now, in my eyes.
Thank you, Matt.
This is really an interesting question because it ties in with everything else that we've been talking about. When you start looking at the idea of how would you improve money, to me, it's not an issue in the school. You're spending that much money. You've got the resources. The question is, how do we go and increase rigor? How do we go and teach students that knowledge is interrelated? That's where you're starting to get true learning taking place. When you are actually studying, you're understanding the relationships between it.
You didn't go out and study driving, driver's ed, did you? No. You learned a technique to drive a car. But when you sit down, you push that button on your car to start it. You start a whole chain reaction of different chemical reactions, physics, that when you think about it, that is where the learning is taking place. That when you study a subject. Now, getting back to this, a curriculum can't just be static. It has to be dynamic. Just like the children are living beings, the curriculum needs to be living as well. We need to be able to look at the curriculum, figure out how can we encourage cross-curricular collaboration by teachers, in terms of developing new classes, new approaches to teaching things, so that the students go from saying that, oh, okay, I'm in English class, boom, that's done. I go on to science class, boom, that's done, and they don't see any interrelationships between them. That is not learning. That's not studying. That's basically just jumping through hoops. So basically, to me, what I would like to see if I get elected is that we go and begin a review of the curriculum. How is our curriculum? How can we tighten it up? How can we improve in college prep? But more importantly, how can we use it to address students, to get them involved in knowledge? One of the best schools they ever taught at said we need to find ways to get students involved in science and the environment. And they created in their high school an environmental studies academy, where you went and you took a series of classes as well as the other requirements, but at the end you got a special seal on your diploma saying that you had studied environmental issues, and you went out and worked with people such as this gentleman here and others in areas of interest to you. They did it also with computer programming and technology development. This is what we need to make our curriculum more dynamic, because the more dynamic the students are going to learn, and that in turn is going to go and draw more people wanting to come into our school district itself.
Thank you, Bob.
So $23,931 per student. Parents who send their kids to Valley are not spending that much. Might be close, but I think the product difference is huge. It's not the money. It's how it's being used. I think also to that iPad issue, I've had a big problem with iPads with my son in school. It's more of a distraction than anything else. And no matter what the IT department at this school district does, they are not able to prevent these kids from going out and viewing porn and everything else on these iPads. I hear it to you, and I know it for a fact. I've been going through round and round with them for years, and finally, Zach doesn't have an iPad at school, but it took quite a bit to do that. But Valley does use iPads. They leverage iPads as a part of the process. If the process isn't the iPad, to Matt's point. So I think that definitely needs to be revisited, and if it can't be locked down, we just don't need it. But in terms of quality of education, I believe it comes from quality teachers, and I believe we have quality teachers in this school district. We have great teachers that want to teach. They have to be allowed to teach. They have to be allowed to not accept garbage being turned in, which they do. We're here, so he does it sometimes. And it's allowed, and it should be. And so the other part of the quality comes from the curriculum, as was spoken to quite eloquently here. We have a board member, Cindy Brown, that's been trying to get her hands on our curriculum for 16 months now, and has not been able to get her hands on that curriculum, which is insane. I think they're hiding it because they don't want to expose just how bad it is. I was somewhere speaking to a former teacher who told me that the curriculum went downhill when somebody in particular came into the district about 10 years ago and thought she should be able to pick all the curriculum, and apparently was not very well qualified for it. I think any taxpayer, any parent in this school district at any time should be able to walk into that school building and see the curriculum, all of it, not just their grade level because they're teaching their high school, as well as the library at any given time, and everything that they're pointing their kids to online at any given time. It should never be hidden. And the current school board apparently has no problem with this. At least the 5 incumbents that are running for re-election seem to have no problem because they're not helping So to get that curriculum. So I think that's important. And once we have that curriculum, I believe teachers should be involved with the curriculum. I dare say I believe they should approve it versus the administration potentially. I don't think we can have a curriculum in the school that is not approved or at least viewed by and agreed to by our teachers who knew more about teaching than any administrator does. Especially a teacher that's been there for 20, 30 years, and you've got an administrator that's in their 20s, you know? So I'd like to see the teachers involved and the community involved with the curriculum, as Robert said, before we.
Thank you, John.
So I think there's no question that there's been in some of the measures that we use to evaluate outcomes for our kids, quality of education that they're receiving. In the time that we've lived here, when we were first trying to decide where we're going to live, in proximity to our workplaces and communities that interested us, we were looking at reviews of different school districts. Niche, the website is interesting in that if you have business and you've ever had Google reviews or you were trying to plan date night and so you looked at the Google reviews, it's a lot of the data that's on there is based on people's feedback. So that means you have a lot of the, I love it and I hate it. And I think in our district in particular, for certain items with the stresses and strains of the last few years, that there's a lot of feedback about things that have to do with not necessarily education as it is at this moment, but as it was a year or 2 years ago. But one thing that is on there that I think is particularly valuable is this piece about testing scores and how kids are doing. That data comes from the Future Ready PA, which is run by the Department of Education. So that's where that website is pulling that information. And it has to do with math and reading proficiency. And it is data that I have pulled myself and analyzed myself and looked at grade, and I've looked at it by school district, just because, I don't have a good book at the moment and running for school board. Those numbers, as the other panelists have mentioned, have been dropping for some time, and even well before the pandemic. And so, like the other panelists, they have questions about that. We have high-quality, engaged teachers who care deeply about the community. Many of them who have or have in the past sent their children to their own schools. So I think it should be a top priority for the board to think about how do we improve what's going on in our schools. Now that said, although we have access to the Ligonier Foundation and individual donors, we have a public school that does not have an endowment, unlike some private schools who don't get money from large outside entities. And we have some of our biggest budget items, I understand, include things like retired teachers' pensions, transportation, and also 1 in 5 children in Ligonier have special needs. They've got an IEP. And so these are kids for whom they need a curriculum that is rigorous and that supports learning and who may not have the options, regardless of the price tag at other schools. Now, for myself as a parent with kids in the district, my oldest kid is once again in 3rd grade, I haven't had many issues finding out about what they're learning in school. I haven't had many issues. In particular, one of my children has an IEP, so I'm very interested in what research-based strategies are being used around certain topics. And so for me, I found that while I might want to see something different, while sometimes I've been quite pleased with what they're doing, I haven't found the same kinds of barriers in a particular classroom in a conversation with a particular teacher about what they're implementing. One thing that I think that we can think of as a canary in the coal mine to give us a clue about where to start when we're trying to understand about the decline is gifted education. And the reason I picked that is that about 6% of all children qualify for gifted education. Means they have an IQ of 130 or above. And in general, wealthier districts tend to have a higher percentage of kids in gifted education. And that in part has to do with resources around screening and maybe thinking about what kind of other enrichment opportunities are available. So the rate in a particular district gives you a clue about procedures that are in place to support an individual child in their learning and also support the whole classroom. So I looked at data not just from our district, but also from Latrobe and United. So people tend to look at those for different reasons. And our rate of identifying children for gifted education is about half of what it is in those districts. So our rate is about 1.5% overall. And it's lower in the elementary schools than we see kids that are older. So what I think is that we have large budget items. I question a little bit the budget as it's stated. We have some things we can't negotiate. We can't say we're not going to pay your pension anymore. We have a very large school district with very large transportation costs. We can't change how cyber school is funded and the other requirements that are out there. But I think this idea about the board looking for the best education tools available, working with the teachers to implement them, and having well-informed conversations about what we want to see for our children and the kinds of life we want them to have with their experience in schools.
Thank you, Marty.
But one of the things I like to do, you'll see in our bio in the whole thing in here. One of the things I like to do is read about American history. Some of you may know, but a lot of people I talk to do not know that the school boards came out of the original 13 colonies, town halls. And now that we're talking about having a town hall meeting every quarter, I thought it was kind of interesting. We're going back to the 1840s and earlier, back in the original 13 colonies in the 1700s. So I bring that up to just let everybody understand probably money is not the issue. My job in the military for 4 years back there in Vietnam was statistical analysis. I understand numbers a little bit. And I just, again, let the teachers teach their subject. Get the parents involved, like everybody said. There's these guys up here, I'm not a computer genius. Joe and John, these guys are all a lot better on computers. I can fly a plane, I'm a private pilot. But I think we just need to do what's good for the kids and listen. My motto is keep it simple.
Thank you, Gary.
For me, I see that the need for an across-the-board look at every aspect of the budget, from the infrastructure to the academic aspect of it. Also, and I think this is the key, is a total team effort. This is not just a school board issue or the administration issue. It involves parents, it involves teachers. In fact, the question I might ask is how much input does the average teacher have in this process, as was mentioned earlier. I have heard it said, leave this to the experts. Now, 30 years in the military, it's all about mission accomplishment. Understanding the mission, getting it done. My take is that there are times when the lowest ranking in the room, the non-expert, has the solution. Know the mission and empower the total team and see what mountain we can scale.
Thank you, John. So we are a little pressed for time, but there is one question that really seems pertinent today, and it has to do with professional misconduct. So the last question, please, we are a little bit pressed for time. There's no time limit here, it's on your own discretion, but with the recent allegations of professional misconduct from teachers, how would you go about creating a school policy that handles these incidents, that not only abides by the law, but makes sure that it does not persist?
The first thing is that, from what my understanding of things, is we need to do a better job. It's very costly to hire a teacher, very costly procedure, and everything like that. So we need to do a better job in the hiring phase rather than before it gets to this conduct. There's different telltale signs of people jumping around school districts, different things we can look at. I think the school board needs to get the full packet in front of clearances, background, etc. And we talk to it as collectively before they're hired, rather than looking at it in the after effects. Including one of these, I think it could have been avoided. I'm not going to say all things happen. Another thing that needs to happen is, and I think the current school board is actually working on, is a policy to fully investigate these in a nice safe manner. I've been reading all kinds of different comments, which I understand it, that I can't understand how the victim is seeing the accuser the next day in school. That can't happen. We've got to set up a system where they're immediately unpaid leave, or immediately separated, or something until it's investigated. And sometimes there's going to be bogus complaints, other times you're going to have a lot of facts to it. We've got to have something policy in place. I have heard that the school board is actually working on a policy for that program. They didn't have one. But we got to make sure. I think the real problem is when we're hiring. I think we got to have really good reviews of everything and look through everything, to look for any abnormalities, and try to hire the best candidate. We also need to recruit the best candidates with improving our education. So I think it's multiple aspects of that.
Thank you, Matt.
Hiring teachers perhaps one of the most difficult things, because you can go out and hire the best person, but if that person doesn't really, as John was saying, that's a team effort. So it's a very, very sticky issue, or complicated issue, not sticky, complicated issue in terms of hiring teachers. The Pennsylvania, Section 111 of Pennsylvania's Public School Code states that the school administration and other persons, such as the board, have responsibility for hiring and reviewing background documents. So one of the things that I think should be done is that before anybody is hired, that those documents should be presented to all of us as a board, so that we can actually go through and see what the reviews are. Are there any red flags? Because some people may have been hired before all the paperwork was done. That should never happen. And it's only by working together in this way that we can actually prevent these types of activity or actions occurring on the schools. And one of the things I do want to say is, as a retired teacher, I rarely have ever seen teachers who are there to harm children. We're there because we want to help your children. We want to work with your children. It's only a few rotten apples that are giving the entire barrel a bad name, and we need to weed those bad apples out.
Thank you, Bob.
Yeah, this alleged incident that being referred to here, this particular teacher allegedly had bounced from school to school before being hired here. That is a huge red flag. This teacher allegedly was allowed to enter the classroom before the background checks were completed. Those background checks allegedly showed 4 child lines against this teacher. A child line is a report made by a mandatory reporter, which teachers are mandatory reporters, nurses, therapists, of a scenario of sexual or other kind of abuse to a minor. And then the teacher allegedly was just moved to another classroom, as Matt was indicating. That cannot happen. It's unfathomable that happened here. It's equally unfathomable that this board did not have a policy. That is crazy. So that just absolutely cannot be allowed to happen. And that is the part of the due process would be that cannot happen. I just want to end with, there's a great opportunity here with this election. There's an opportunity for this community to get its school district back. And have a board that wants this community to have its school district back. And a board that will listen to this community and will govern this administration with the community and the teachers involved. That's a promise.
Thank you, Joe.
So the abuse of children and youth is something I care deeply about. And it's something that I've been involved with addressing professionally through my work, through intervention work that I've been involved with, but also through service. So I have, among other things, been a domestic violence and sexual assault hotline volunteer. I was trained as a court-appointed special advocate for foster children in Westmoreland County. And so through all that volunteer work and professionally, I've had a close seat to seeing some of the unfortunate effects of abuse. And vast majority, I would agree with Mr. Brennan, that the vast majority of teachers love kids. And also, 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 13 boys will be abused, most often by somebody they know before they reach 18. And it's something that when I started my career in the state was during the Sandusky and Paterno scandal Sports, for those of you who might be following Penn State football over the years. And it's a high-profile, trusted professionals, beloved by the community, finally being held accountable. It also really shook the community in terms of who to believe, how to respond, and reviewing policies. And so I thought of that when I was looking at the question, this particular question. Sexual abuse is a reality, and it is something that every institution needs a plan for. How to prevent it, how to respond to it, and how to communicate about it when there are accusations. I've explored our district policies, and there are several that we have, many of whom were passed and reauthorized by the board within the last 4 years by current sitting board members that have to do with a wide range of issues related to sexual abuse, discrimination, and harassment of students and also teachers. I don't believe that there's a specific community communication plan beyond the importance of maintaining privacy of those involved when there's been an accusation. It's something that when it comes to communication, I think we could have additional internal policies, not just around sanctions and leave and reporting, but also how do we connect with the community that is so close-knit. In the wake of this investigate criminal charges, the State College community, in partnership with their YMCA, brought in a nationally regarded program called Darkness to Light to the area to have better dialogue and awareness around this topic place. I think, like many in our community, the board could do more around communication and empathetically engaging with the community to rebuild trust.
Thank you, Maureen.
Proverbs 11:14, where there is no counsel, the people fall, but in the multitude of counsel, there is safety.
I also took a look at, in the Ligonier School District, the policy manual, and professional employees, there is an educator misconduct that is already in place, number 417.1. Since the policy is in place, there probably needs to be looked at and maybe adjusted as it is carried out. But also here is where transparency is critical. All the rights of the accused and the accusers assured. Is the investigation being conducted in accordance with law officials? Bottom line, every allegation is taken seriously and dealt with in a proper sequence in accordance with policy and existing laws, period. Indeed, transparency and communication is critical in this process.
So these questions were of course, asked by the public. And there were many more questions as well, but we do have a town hall forum next week from 6:30 until 8 at New Forest United Methodist Church. It is on the other end of the district. If you would like more information, I'm sure you've already seen it on websites and business cards, but if not, please do get involved, and please, there are cards here on the table as well for you to take. And one final quote from Albert Einstein is, "A student is not a container you have to fill up, but a torch you have to light." And thank you all for being here. Thank you all as well for being here. Thank you for watching at home, and we will see you next time.